Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a subject that I think is very important for us English language learners, and that is etymology. And before we start discovering what etymology is, we have to look at what makes up an English word. Well, there are four main properties of a word in English. That is meaning, the literal dictionary definition of a word, spelling, the letters that arrange to make up this word, and pronunciation, the way those letters that make up the word roll off your tongue. But there's a fourth, equally important part of learning English words, and that is knowing the history. And that is the answer which etymology helps us to know. Now, what is etymology? Etymology is the study of the origin and history of words, how they evolved over time, and how they came to have the meaning that we know of today. Now, where do words come from? Well, there are three main processes that make up new words, and these derive and come from other languages. A quarter from Germanic language, the ancient language of Central Europe, Latin, the ancient language of Rome, and French, of course, which is the language of France and Italy at the time. And we see about 10% comes from proper names. Those are the names of places and proper nouns, such as the names of rivers, lakes, mountains, and cities. A little sliver comes from Greek. Usually these are scientific words. And a portion comes from other or unknown origin, for example, Arabic. Now, there are three main processes that turn a word from one of these languages into English. These processes are derivation, compounding, and borrowing. And the first process we're going to talk about is derivation. Now, derivation is the process of adopting one word from one of these ancient languages into the English language, but with a slightly different meaning and spelling. For example, the word clue in ancient Greek. Now, a ball of yarn in Greek is clue. And when the Odyssey by Homer came out, Theseus was trapped in a maze, our hero Theseus from Greek mythology. And when he entered this maze, he brought with him a ball of yarn. And he started to lay this thread before him as he walked deeper and deeper into the maze. And when he wanted to get out, all he had to do was follow that thread back home. And that is how the English word clue, meaning a piece of evidence or something that guides us into the right path or guides in the right path. The second process is borrowing and loan words. Now, borrowing is quite similar to derivation in that it takes a word from one language into English. But the only difference is that borrowing, we take that word as it is without any change in meaning or in spelling. For example, the word cafe from French, or the word robot from a Czech novel. The third process is compounding. Now, compounding is when you take two words from one or more different languages and stick them together to get the combined meaning of these words. These are used a lot in the different sciences, for example, medicine, biology, or geology. And these root words, as they're called, are usually of Greek or Latin origin. For example, the word tele, meaning far away, the word phone, meaning sound, the word aqua, meaning water, the word scope, meaning vision, the word duct, meaning to bring or to give, port, meaning a place, and trans, meaning across or beyond. But compounding isn't always from these foreign languages. There are lots of words in the English language that are examples of compound nouns. For example, the word basketball or the word witherman. Here are some examples of compounding. The word telescope, from the Greek tele, meaning far away or far off in the distance, and the word scope from the Greek skopio, meaning to see or I see. And that's what a telescope does. It helps us to see things that are very far away. The same goes for the word submarine, that comes from the Greek sub, meaning under, and the word maris from Latin, meaning the sea. Or the word telephone from Greek far away, and phone from sound, which is a device that helps us to hear sounds that are very far away. Maybe you're talking to a friend that is in another country. And the word transport, with trans meaning across and port meaning place. And these are what these vehicles and vessels help us do. They help us get from one place into another, beyond oceans or skies. Now, we can look at an example of how etymology can help us in our everyday lives. For example, if you're reading into Roman history and you encounter the word aqueduct, well, you can guess the meaning of that word using the root words that we discussed earlier. The word aqua meaning water, and duct meaning to bring or to give. And an aqueduct is just that. It's a channel, it's a man-made channel that helps us bring water from one place into another, be it a city or a town. Now, here we have an example of a tool that etymologists use in their sciences, and that's a tree. It's kind of like a family tree of words and how they've evolved over time. So we have the Proto-Indo-European, a very, very ancient language, the word fa, meaning to speak, which evolved into the Latin fare, meaning the act of speaking, which further evolved into the word fans, meaning speaking, and fabula, meaning story. Now, fabula had its own life, again driving into fabulosus, meaning something that is rich in myths and mythology, which gave us the English word fabulous. And when we describe something as fabulous, we say it's almost mythical in nature. It's so great, so amazing, that it can only happen in stories and fairy tales. Now, the word fans, meaning speaking, got also its own derivation. In, the prefix meaning not was compounded into fans to create the Latin word infantum, meaning a young child or a baby, a person who does not yet speak. And that was then derived into the English infant. Now, another beauty of etymology is that it can help us explain things that may seem illogical at first. Now, if I ask you why the word doubt has a B in it, well, you just say that it's just a silly mistake, because it's there, but it's not spelled. Well, there's a very important reason there's a B there. When we look at the Latin root duo, meaning two, we can see that this gave us the words double, meaning twice the amount. And here we spell the B. It also gave us the word doubloon. Now, a doubloon is a coin, a two-faced coin. Well, that was used, of course, by pirates in ancient times. And when English scholars wrote their dictionaries, they took doubt from the French root doute. But their knowledge of ancient Latin etymologies brought them to the modern form doubt, with the B there, a throwback to that ancient B sound in all Latin etymologies, although it is not spelled following the French. So they took their pronunciation from French, but their spelling from Latin. Now, of course, that gives the meaning of doubt. When you doubt, you have second thoughts about something. Your mind is stuck between two states of belief or disbelief. Now, why should we learn etymologies? Now, as we've seen before, etymology helps us spell and pronounce our words better. It also helps us to use the words that we know more effectively and understand the nuances of a meaning of a word. And 3, etymology helps us guess the meanings of new words. Now, if I gave you, for example, the German word Zweifel. Zweifel. Now, we see here, now this word, of course, means doubt in German. We can see that it also has the same thing that we talked about in the word doubt. It has zwei, which means two in German. Now, of course, if you want to read further in the subject, you have the online etymology dictionary and some books that I found pretty interesting in the subject. Okay, any questions? Yes?
Why do you think Latin and Greek are the main languages which English was derivated from or evolved upon?
Well, in the 17th and 18th century, there weren't really many words in English that were taken from Greek or Latin. And we call that now Old English. Words that are really more pure in their ancestry. But after the Renaissance, and when the Latin and Greeks brought the sciences into Europe, Many English scholars took words from them. That's why the words for religious concepts or scientific concepts are usually always Greek or Latin in nature, while simpler words, like the words for animals or cuts of meat, are always purely English in nature. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Are there any English words that came from an Arabic origin?
Well, of course. For example, if you look at the words rice and sugar, we can clearly see the connection that came from the Arabic ruz and sukkar. But even more obscure words, for example, the camera. Now, when Ibn al-Haytham invented the qamra, the small dark room in which he projected an image from outside, the Latins came and took him from the camera and called it the camera obscura, the dark room. And then English scholars took it from the word camera after they invented the modern camera that we know of today. Or the word sodium. Now, sodium is a chemical element, and it was used in ancient times. Sodium salts were used in ancient times for the treatment of headaches, and of course, Muslim scholars and scientists discovered that. So, when these sciences came into Europe, they took the Arabic word for suda', headache, something that was cured in Arabic medicine using these sodium salts, and then created the word sodium to describe this new element. Yes. Any other question?
How does this apply to different types of languages, such as sign language?
Well, when we look at languages, we can mostly split them into two categories. The first category being the natural languages, for example, Arabic or English or French. And the other category are the conlangs, the constructed languages, the artificial languages. And these are languages that were not created through the natural evolution of other words and languages, but were a work of man, a scientist or someone who wanted to create a way of delivering ideas in a coded manner or for a specific purpose. And thus, and sign language is an example of these constructed languages. It was created for a specific purpose and is also just a derivation of English. So while also being a constructed language, it's also what etymologists might call a Creole, a specific subset of language that was created to satisfy a certain purpose, in this example being communication with the deaf. Thank you all for listening, and in the end, I'd like to give special thanks to my teacher, Mr. Mahmoud Al-Alawni, and Mr. Maawi Bani Yasin for their support in my endeavors. Thank you.